The other bills that I wanted to mention, the arbitration bills that Mike referenced, are very similar to what we saw last year with AB 465, Hernandez bill, and I'm not sure if that rings a bell for anybody, but it basically was saying that you couldn't have mandatory arbitration agreements as a condition of employment. That bill made it all the way down to the governor's desk. It was one of the most controversial bills that was sitting on his desk last year. It was one of the most lobbied bills that was sitting on his desk last year from both the employer side and the labor side of things. And we ultimately prevailed. He vetoed that bill given the preemption issue with federal law and given the existing California protections with regards to mandatory arbitration agreements. So in his veto message, he said, hey, if there are alleged abuses regarding arbitration, then I would be interested to see narrow bills that really address those abuses. But basically banning arbitration together is not something that he was supportive of. Despite that, there's been two bills introduced on the Assembly side, one by Assembly Member Thurmond and one by Assembly Member Mark Stone. Both of those bills are basically the identical language of AB 465 from last year, however, with some important changes. The Thurmond bill is applicable to consumer contracts instead of employment agreements, and it's limited to civil rights violations. So it basically says you cannot have a consumer contract for goods that require the consumer to waive as a condition of the contract their right to go to court to pursue a civil rights violation. Well, of course, consumer contracts for purchase of goods doesn't have the individual, code sections under which you're required to arbitrate. It just says any and all disputes arising from the purchase of this product will be subject to arbitration. So this bill would basically make all retailers, all companies who offer consumer goods to go back and rewrite their consumer contracts and specify all disputes other than those dealing with a civil rights violation are subject to arbitration. Other than that, it's identical to AB 465 last year. Similarly, Assemblymember Mark Stone's bill is applicable to employment agreements, and it says if you are a member of the military or a veteran, you cannot be required to sign an arbitration agreement as a condition of employment. Identical language to 465. The only thing that the authors have done are pick two politically and socially sensitive issues, military members, veterans, and civil rights violations, to try and nibble away at the edges of arbitration and try and get the sensitivity of the members to basically support these two versions of the bill. Otherwise, it's exact language that the governor vetoed last year.